So thanks for taking the time to see what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. This tutorial is going to show you three things. I will dive deeper into these each on Wednesday. But the first thing we're going to look at is where we are, where we've been, and where we're headed. Second thing we're going to look at is the power of synchronous, asynchronous, and blended learning, which I'll explain those technical terms here in just a second. And then last but not least, how does Wednesday fit into a blended learning picture? I'll try to illustrate that as we go. So as we talk about living in a current COVID world, as pastors, you have essentially to answer this question, right? How am I supposed to teach when you take Sunday morning away? And I'm old enough to remember Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. I don't know if any of you ever watched those cartoons on Saturday morning, but these two would go at it every single Saturday. And Wiley always had a bulletproof plan, right? Some new contraption from Acme Corporation that was going to catch the Roadrunner and he'd finally get him. But he always ended up here, right? Midair, about to drop, which to me feels a lot like COVID, right? No matter what plan I have or I think is bulletproof, I often feel like Wile E. Coyote. But the good news is we're not helpless, right? We don't have to stay there. But we do have to understand where we used to be, where we are right now, and potentially what's ahead. And so to do that, I'm going to draw you a quick picture that I think will give us a map of how we look at this. So draw a horizontal line, and on the right end of it, write together time. We're going to label this as together time. And then on the left end, we're going to label that as different times. All right. And then we're going to draw a vertical line, and we're going to label that the place line. And at the bottom, we're going to call it together. And at the other end, the top end, we're going to call it apart. So we have 4 quadrants out of these 2 lines. If you're starting to get the hives because of an algebra or high school math experience, just breathe. It'll be okay. I promise we'll get through this. Before COVID, where did we live? We lived in that lower right quadrant. Okay, so Sunday morning happened together in time and in place. Right. So the technical term for this is in-person synchronous learning. Okay, same time, same place. Everybody lived happily ever after. Right. I'm in my 28th year of teaching. I did this for 27 years. Right. This was same place, same time, game on. Until COVID. Right. Now we can't actually be in person. Right. There's a public health cost to that that's stopping that from happening. So most of our learning communities moved from the bottom right to the upper right quadrant in our little map. Schools, businesses, churches, we're all trying to meet at the same time, but we're not in the same physical space anymore. Right? The Zoom grows by 4,000% or whatever it was last spring. So the technical term for this upper right quadrant is synchronous remote learning. Okay, so even Wednesday's meeting is a good example of this. Right? We're all going to meet at the same time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but none of us are going to be in the same physical room. We can't be in person. Right? So the rest of this, I want us to think about what's ahead. Right? So for several of us, moving back to in-person learning situations is still a long way off, right? So what do we do now, right, in the midst of this? That's the question. And to answer this, we got to move over to that left-hand quadrant, right, the upper left quadrant. So in this quadrant, we're still remote, right, because we can't be in person, but we also don't have to be at the same time anymore. We can be at different times, right? So the technical term for this is asynchronous learning. We don't have to be together. We don't have to be at the same time. And this video itself is an example of asynchronous learning, right? You're watching it right now when it's convenient for you, not when I recorded it, right? Whether it was a day ago or a couple days ago, whatever. So here's how this video connects to Wednesday. If you want to increase the wattage or the power of your synchronous meetings, you got to do 2 things, okay? Number 1, you have to set them up with compelling asynchronous segments. And number 2, you got to design and facilitate compelling synchronous meetings. Okay, the technical term for connecting these two is called blended learning, back and forth between them. And we're going to explore this on Wednesday, right? So I'm flipping the script a bit. Here's another way to see it. Okay, this first box is what you're doing right now. This video is an asynchronous segment. All right, we're going to follow that up on Wednesday with a synchronous meeting. And then potentially, either with Corey or me or somebody else, you could do another asynchronous piece afterwards, right? And you could just rinse and repeat. That's a blended learning scenario. My hope is that you're intrigued, right? That you're going to keep thinking about these learning spaces between now and Wednesday. And my goal for Wednesday is that you experience it as a participant, right? What does a synchronized, tightly focused remote meeting look like, right? Feel like. And then on what I'm really hoping is to think with you, right? How can this help you and your congregation and the learning spaces that you're designing right now? COVID's here, right? We can try to deny it. We can wish that things were different or that we're getting back to normal, right? All those things are tempting. I get it. But we have a chance to meet our students, our learners, our congregants in new and sacred ways right now, right in the middle of COVID. And the interesting thing I want you to think about is what if that's possible, right? What if the Spirit's just waiting for us to say, okay, I'm out of ideas. Do you have any? The Trinity's got a pretty good track record when it comes to creativity in the midst of adversity, right? So I look forward to seeing what we discover together on Wednesday. Thanks for watching. God bless.